it looks like we found ourselves in a very hairy situation. Yeah, I just made that joke. DC Universe's Doom Patrol, Season 1, Episode 10, Review and Breakdown. Hey Twisted people, it's your Twisted Girl next door here, and today I am doing a review and breakdown, and of course my comic book talk of DC Universe's Doom Patrol, Season 1, Episode 10, Hair Patrol. Now, if you're new here, this is the way it goes. I give my overall thoughts of the episode, as in my overall thoughts of the episode, the happenings in the episodes, and what I thought about that. Ship talk, because I do love talking about relationships. Predictions, which are crap when it comes to this particular show. I don't even know if I'm going to attempt a prediction after this particular episode. Oh my gosh. And finally, comic book talk, because if you don't know, and you probably do, these characters are based off of a comic book series, so I like to talk about the comic books as well. Overall, this was such a weird episode, and I know we've already established how weird this show is, but I honestly thought we had reached the height of how weird we'd get, and then within that each episode would pretty much reach that weird that we reached. And these episodes, this particular one just was like, yeah, screw that bar we just raised, we're gonna go higher than that still. And wow, it did. But not in a bad way. I really actually did enjoy this episode. We got some revelations. I think one of the great things about this show that I have been so impressed with is how this show has set up such an awesome overall arc when it comes to the mystery of Niles, of Mr. Nobody, of what's going on there. But then there's many mysteries and many plots, like with Jane, with Rita, with Cyborg, with Larry, and Cliff even, where there's things going on there that's, some things are mysterious. There's still some secrets that haven't been revealed. Do they play in the overall arc? And even if they don't, they're still interesting on their own. That it just culminates in such a well done story. Chief's backstory and love story. So first we're shown a flashback with Niles in 1913, and I guess it's in Canada, the wilderness, it's the woods. And so he's on an expedition for the Bureau of Oddities, and we find out what that eventually turns into later, but right now it's the Bureau of Oddities with his partner in the woods, Alistair. What we see is that Niles is a straight up scientist. He's an explorer. He's not a fighter. He's not a warrior at this point. He's not hardened by the world. He's just a curious guy wanting to make the world a better place. Niles goes to use the bathroom in the woods and he's attacked by wolves, and then Alistair is also attacked by wolves. Alistair seemingly is killed by the wolves. Niles runs off. He breaks his leg and he's saved by someone. First it looks like this werewolf moose-like creature, and he wakes up in a cave. What we discover is some, I don't want to call her a Neanderthal. She didn't look like a Neanderthal. It was like a cave woman. She had a lot of hair. She didn't speak English or anything like that. She's the one who basically saved Niles, and she's keeping him in the cave, semi-tied up. His leg is healing, and yeah, she doesn't talk to him. She's a little, violent towards him. He doesn't know what is going on. What Niles eventually discovers is that this cave woman is some part of an ancient civilization of, wood type people who have lived for very, very long durations of time. And she was also living with them for all those duration of time. So he doesn't know how old she is, but he surmises that basically she's over hundreds of years old. And so he decides to stay on longer to figure out more when it comes to the cave woman. And they hook up. Yeah, that was, I kind of was expecting it, but I kind of wasn't. And then it happened and I was like, all right, well, that's okay. So that happened. They hook up. They fall in love, seemingly. And Niles decides that he's not going back to civilization, that he has found where he wants to be in the world and he's going to stay with her. So he ends up staying there for a few years. And when he's out by himself, he comes upon Alistair, who did not die in the woods those years ago. And Alistair is explaining to him that first they're out there looking for him and other things, but that the Bureau of Oddities is now the Bureau of Normalcy. Dun dun dun. Because, yeah, that's connected to our present plot line. Oh my gosh, right? And so Alistair also tells Niles that he knows about his girlfriend, the cave woman. And so he's telling Niles, or threatening Niles, that he wants to take her in. It looks like Chief is leading Alistair back to his girlfriend, but no, he isn't. He lets Alistair fall through the ice and die. And he also throws away his journal, which was explaining like his life and stuff when it came to the cave woman. Chief decides to go back to civilization in order to throw the rest of the world, or the Bureau of Normalcy, off when it comes to his woman. And so he goes back to civilization, leaving her there in the woods, seemingly. I mean, that's the only thing we can guess. We don't know actually what happens. We just see next that he's like going back to the other hunters that were with Alistair, and he's explaining his time there with whatever little societal like clique of people he's with. And he, of course, has kept the secret of his lady cave love. What we find, though, is that it's actually Mr. Nobody that is searching through Chief's memories when it comes to it. And so, yay, Mr. Nobody. But also, they're still in that white room, and Mr. Nobody is talking to Chief and saying, what and where is the girl? Because it kind of reveals that maybe what Mr. Nobody wants is the girl, and something to do with eternal life and not having to age. I liked getting this backstory of Chief. I think, he is kind of the core of Doom Patrol, right? He has brought this team of, delinquents and dysfunctional people together, and to get a little bit more of a glimpse of who his character is, I think is necessary. And I thought this was a very interesting plot. It was weird, so weird, but it actually made sense and it worked. It wasn't like so weird was like, is this even a Doom Patrol episode? It just completely worked for it, but it was a nice backstory, so I appreciated that. This plot line also put in the forefront what has been on my mind since this show started, which is the fact that many of these characters haven't aged or don't age, right? And I think I said this when it came to one of Jane's Central episodes, where it showed her like in the 1960s and the 1970s, and she looked the same that she does now. Now, at the time, I just said, well, maybe that's just something to do with her powers, that whatever power she has made it so that she does not age. Maybe that's it. Maybe she just reverts back to the way she's always looked, even though technically Jane should be like 50 or 60 years old at this point, but she doesn't look that way. And with Rita, who also hasn't aged, I just kind of assumed it was something with her like molecular biology of, she's shaping herself. So maybe she just continues to shape herself into the way she used to look back when she first got her powers. So I dismissed that. And even with Larry, I don't know how he looks under his wraps. I'm assuming he might be the same age as well, but then again, you could just say it's the negative energy that makes it so he looks that way or whatever. It doesn't just seem to be turning into an old man, right? Like he still seems to walk around like a young guy. And Cliff is, a robot. So, but with Niles, that's not explained yet, right? It's like he was in 1913. He appeared to be like the way he is now at the age of like maybe 40s, like late 40s, 50s and whatnot. And he still looks that way. So clearly something affected him. So I like the fact that the show kind of touched on that, and that we're getting into the question of expanding your life and immortality. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when it comes to the comic book talk, because I think it actually connects. But I'm like, wow, I'm glad someone's addressing it, because we need to talk about the fact that these people don't age. Vic and Rita team up against the Beard Hunter. So when it comes to this particular plot line, what we find is that this is what happened during the last episode when Jane, Cliff, and Larry was unconscious, but Jane and Cliff was in the underground. So this was the plot line that was happening then, which is very interesting because I did actually mention it in my last review and recap where I said, I asked you all, like, I was like, do you think there should have been a B plot during that episode? And it's funny enough that they made them both A plots, which I think worked so well. I think with what happened last episode and what happened this episode, they both needed to have they both needed to have enough screen time. So I appreciated that this was given the time that it deserved, especially with Vic and Rita. So we're introduced to the Beard Hunter, aka Ernest, and oh my gosh, this character, so weird. What we find out about the Beard Hunter, aka Ernest, is that he eats hair. And because he eats the hair, how he got his powers, I don't even want to know. And how he discovered his powers, I don't think I really want to know. But we know that when he eats hair, it connects him to the person that the hair belongs to, where he can like get inside their mind, know their history, and he can also track them to where they currently are. The Bureau of Normalcy decides that they want to enlist him into finding Niles. And this is connected because of what happened with the Danny the Street episode, where Niles comes on the Bureau of Normalcy's radar. Although I'm thinking he was on their radar already, since we found out that he used to be part of Bureau of Oddities, which was the precursor to Bureau of Normalcy. So Ernest goes to the mansion, and this is happening while Jane and Cliff are basically not able to help, and Larry isn't either. And of course, negative energy is tied up at the moment. So only people that are left conscious are Rita and Cyborg. And at that moment, they're actually looking at the comic book that Danny gave them. And it would appear that the muscle man that's in the ad isn't there. Now, of course, this isn't brought up again at all in the rest of the episode, but it was noted before Ernest came on the scene. In what is probably maybe the second most disgusting thing that has happened on this show so far, the first being when that rat crawled out of Cliff's mouth, Ernest digs into the bathroom sink scum and eats the leftover of, I guess, Niles' like aftershave and soap scum, and oh my gosh, it was disgusting. So he passes out, and Vic and Rita find him. They tie him up. He wakes up. They're wondering who the heck he is. He tells them, basically. He says that he's there to find Niles, but he also tells them that they will never find Niles. And he's telling them, from what he guessed in eating Niles' hair, that Niles isn't who he appears to be, and he's not a very good guy at all. And during this time, he is also like staring at Cyborg's chin hair. Vic and Rita leave Ernest in the room to try to figure out what to do. Vic suggests putting some type of tracking device on Ernest, because it's like, let him go and we'll find out where he's going, and maybe it will lead us to Niles. During this time, one of Vic's chin hairs fell off. Ernest, this is such a weird recap to even talk about that this is happening. But he sniffs in Vic's like chin hair, and then he breaks out of his tie up, and now he can also sense and know what's going on with Vic. Which is all types of weird, because now he's also saying, just like Niles, that the rest of the team don't know about Vic, and that he has some dark secrets inside of him that maybe he doesn't even know about. And, Vic is trying to fight him, but of course he can't, because of the fact that because Ernest knows everything that Vic knows, he can sense what he's going to do. So he's basically able to like avoid every punch that Vic throws at him. And eventually he gets away, but also because of the fact that Vic's body is malfunctioning. For whatever reason, something keeps overriding, and they're trying to kill Ernest. And so in killing him, they also aren't like turning off his booster of his arm, and it keeps causing these explosions. So Ernest gets away, and Vic is really demoralized in a way, because he's like, what is going on? Him and Rita, Vic and Rita, have a sort of heart-to-heart, which I'll talk about a little bit in my ship talk. And Rita also reveals that she did put the tracker on Ernest, and that she will keep Vic's secret, because he asks her to keep his secret, or keep what happened there a secret with the whole malfunctioning thing, until he can figure out what's going on. And at that moment, Jane and them, pretty much the previous episode and this episode, collide, and we see what happened towards the end of the episode. It appears that Ernest is tracking Niles to where we think he is with Mr. Nobody. Now, I think they kind of threw us off because they had the like stairs that looked like it would be in Nobody's lair. But then he's like led to what looks like this like ragdoll version, and it was so creepy, of Niles in the wheelchair. And then he turns around, and that monster from earlier, the wolf/moose standing up monster, is there and seemingly attacks and kills him. And then the episode ends. Like, whoa. I felt like at the end of the episode, I felt like I sounded like, if you've ever watched Blossom, and if you haven't, oh my gosh, you're so young. I felt like I sounded like Joey from Blossom, where I was like, whoa. It was such an interesting episode when it came to that plot line. Oh my gosh, the beard hunter, the friggin' beard hunter. At first I was kind of like, oh, this is such a joke character. He's such a throwaway character. But I was like, no, this really actually works in such a marvelous way. And the actor was so awesome who played Beard Hunter. It just worked so well. And I didn't know how they were going to fit this in. I thought it would kind of be one of those filler episodes, but it totally wasn't. And I thought it was very interesting, the whole idea of him sensing, one, that everything isn't what it seems with Niles, but even more so when it comes to Vic, which is playing into both of those mysteries like I talked about earlier. So I appreciated that. I also love the fact that in Doom Patrol's universe, Vic is already famous as Cyborg, so everyone always gets starstruck. Even Beard Hunter, he was like, this is Cyborg, oh my god. And I really just wasn't expecting that ending. I didn't know what that was. Why is the monster there? Where did Ernest go? How was he able, that wasn't Niles, right? But somehow, obviously, something of that thing is like part of Niles if Ernest was able to get there, right? But of course, it wasn't the real Niles. So where is the real Niles, and what was that thing, and how was it able to, like, I guess, have the essence of Chief? Niles and his ancient lady love. Once again, I thought it was a sweet love story, a very unusual but somehow very fitting for Doom Patrol love story when it came to it. And I'm interested to see where she is. I mean, clearly she's not dead, right? So it's like, where has she been all this time? I don't know. So I don't think it's the last we've seen of her. And I wonder if Niles is still like in love with her. Maybe he's been visiting her all this time. We don't know. So that'll be interesting. But that's definitely a ship. Cyborg and Rita. Okay, so maybe this is a little bit of wishful thinking of shipping on my part, because I've kind of shipped them since they had that banter when Cyborg first came to the mansion. But I think they had a very nice moment in this episode when it came to Rita telling Vic that the team needed him to be the leader, and, you know, the whole idea of taking his advice and putting the tracker on Ernest, and then them holding hands right before Jane and them woke up. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think that was a moment between them. Do I think they're building anything romantic? I don't know. But, because, you know, I suck at predictions with this show, but I liked it, and I like when they team up because I think they have a very cute dynamic. Okay, so for my comic book talk, I wanted to focus on two things. One, Niles and his backstory, more so when it comes to the immortality situation, because I think this is actually touched upon in the comic books, and I think it is important to touch upon here when it comes to the fact that they've been alluding to it in the comic books. And then I want to talk about Beard Hunter. So just basically a little tidbit when it comes to the whole immortality situation. So when it comes to Niles' backstory in the comics, he actually has a connection to the whole thing of trying to find a longer lifespan. And that is through his connection to the character General Immortus. This is a character who basically has been prolonging his life with some sort of chemical, and he enlists Niles' help to get some type of chemical to lengthen his life, basically get immortality. And eventually Niles turns on him in one version of Niles' origin story, and makes it so he doesn't give General Immortus this thing. And General Immortus is sort of a villain of the Doom Patrol. And so I think that's interesting that they connected with that, because one of Niles' plot lines was this idea of getting a serum that can make it so someone could live forever and not age. And so we saw this, and I felt like they're doing this in a whole different kind of way with his Lady Love Cave Woman, but it's definitely clearly something that they're following through on, that aspect of it, which is very much in the comics. And then there is Beard Hunter, who is very much in the Doom Patrol comics. And when it came to this live action version of him, I felt like it was perfect. It was so perfect. It worked. And they actually added some different aspects of his characterization as well. So that was interesting. So in the comics, Beard Hunter, who is also named Ernest in the comic books, he starts off as a young man who has a hormone deficiency that makes it so he can't grow facial hair, right? And so he's kind of unstable, and it makes it so that he goes on a war against his own individual war against anyone who can grow a beard. And so he basically, with his guns and things of that nature, kills anyone with a beard and takes their facial hair as a trophy. He also has an obsession with bodybuilding magazines. Also, in the comics, he is very much still living with his mother. He's about 36 years old and like lives in his mother's basement. That's still a thing that happens in the comic books as well. He's something of a minor, very, very minor villain in the Doom Patrol comics because, well, he's basically just a guy who kills people with beards. So he's more so a serial killer, and but he's usually very much easily defeated in the comic books as well. So they don't really consider him like a major villain, although he's not a good guy. So that's kind of the major difference when it comes to Beard Hunter live action versus Beard Hunter and Doom Patrol, is that in the live action, they made it so he actually has powers. His powers, which, I mean, despite it being kind of disgusting, it's actually kind of cool, right? Like, he can inhale someone or eat someone's, like, essence, aka their hair, and get so much information about them and actually track them down. So he actually has a superpower that's actually very useful. And so they changed that up for the live action, which is very different from the comic books, because in the comic books he's like just a guy who uses his guns and knives to kill people with facial hair. Either way, this character is so bizarre, both in the comics and the live action. So I am so glad they used him in the live action. And finally, my predictions. I have none. But I guess my one guess is Ernest is dead. And the other guess is that we're going to see this cave woman again. I don't know how, but clearly if that monster is still around, the cave woman is too. So we will be seeing her again. That is my guess. Once again, I'm being a basic B with that guess, but that's all I got. Okay, so what did you think of DC Universe's Doom Patrol Season 1, Episode 10, Hair Patrol? Let me know, what are your predictions? I'm sure, like I always say, you probably have some better guesses than I do. Let me know, comment down below. Let me know what did you think of Beard Hunter? I thought he was so fun, and I really enjoyed that. And also, what do you think is Vic's secret, and what is Niles' secret? What's going on there? And did we finally find out what Mr. Nobody wants? Does Mr. Nobody basically just want immortality somehow? I thought he was already immortal. Who knows? Let me know. Comment down below with your thoughts and theories. And also, be sure to subscribe so that you're the first to know when I post my videos of all things horror, dark fantasy, and dark superhero. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.